Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to Press Pause today. Aurora and I are here and we're very excited to get into Star Wars, okay? Now, Aurora has been looking at her Jedi holocrons and she has noticed through the holocrons that many of you are not subscribers of the channel yet. This needs to get fixed. So please subscribe to the channel as we get into today's topic of why Yoda didn't fail Anakin. Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to Press Pause today. Aurora and I are really excited to get into the Star Wars universe, so we're going to be talking about that here shortly. Before we get into the content, wanted to let you guys know we have noticed from our Jedi holocrons, many of you are not subscribers to the channel. If you do like the content, appreciate what we're doing at the channel, please subscribe. Leave us comments on things you'd like to see in future videos. And we are official travel agents, so if you want to go down and see Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Orlando or at California, or Disneyland, Disney World, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to help you book your next set of magical memories. Now, let's go ahead and get into it. All right, we're gonna be talking about Yoda. Today's video, we're talking about Yoda. We're talking about why Yoda didn't fail Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one, ultimately Darth Vader, why he didn't fail him, because at one point in the video, Yoda says, "I have failed, I must go into exile." We don't believe that he failed in the sense that many people believe. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's topic. So let's go ahead and get into it. Aurora, do you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about the little green man?
Yeah, guys. So Kermit the Frog.
Aurora, no, Yoda.
Sorry. Yeah, so Yoda. If you don't know, Yoda was the Grand Master of the Jedi. Yoda lived to be 900 years old and had mentored and taught many Jedi over his time. He was the most powerful Jedi of his age and one of the most powerful Jedi to ever exist.
That's right. So Yoda, as Aurora said, great Jedi Master, one of the most iconic characters from Star Wars, if not the most iconic character. I don't know, Baby Yoda and Grogu is making their way up there, but Yoda I think still more iconic at this point. Yoda, let's talk about the dark side of Yoda and how Yoda understood the dark side. Yoda was taught, even though he was a Jedi Master, he'd lived for 900 years when he died. Yoda was taught under a much older regime of Jedi. Okay, in the time that it was far greater in the past than we'd like to believe, but it was over 800 years ago that he was taught by Jedi when he was growing as a Padawan, an apprentice. And so this is something that we have seen from him, is that this old regime, that teaching was what founded the situation that we saw in the current Jedi in the pre-Disney movies, okay? We're talking about pre-Disney movies here. We're not talking about, Rise of Skywalker. We're not talking about Return of the Jedi, or we're talking about everything up to Return of the Jedi. Everything before that is what we're talking about here. And so you can see Yoda was taught by the old regime. He was taught by the old ways of the Jedi. It was a very focused approach that Yoda had because of that old way of teaching. And so he was very tunnel vision in how he thought about things in the beginning. Now, I do think that Yoda was very smart beyond his years, because the Jedi, even though they may have looked like this on the outside, I think Yoda, he was much wiser than we were led to believe from the movies. I think Yoda battled politics within the Jedi, and because of that, there were those in the Jedi Order that were fully planted in the old ways, like Ki-Adi-Mundi. Ki-Adi-Mundi was a Jedi Master. He was a part of the Jedi Council, and Ki-Adi-Mundi was very focused on the old ways of the Force, very dogmatic in his approach, and very tunnel vision in how he saw things. So those are the ones that it was hard for Yoda to be more open. But there were also some Jedi who were more open and more understanding of the Force itself. What we mean by this is you have Yoda who's sitting there saying, well, I have a bunch of Jedi that want to believe in this tunnel vision, what I believe is wrong way of thinking about the light side of the Force. I can't sit there and just tell them all they're wrong, because I will lose the faith of the Jedi. I will lose the faith of the Jedi Order. But what I can do is start to sprinkle in what I believe and that is living through the real Force, listening to the Force, following its emotions, and allowing outside emotions and connections to sink in. Okay? We see this, all right? Yoda knew the ways that he taught were not the right path, but he needed to slowly shift this view within the Jedi. It's not like he could just come out like Bob Chapek and say, oh, we're a data and analytics focused company now. Screw what Bob Iger did. We're going in a completely different direction. No, he would have lost every bit of confidence from the Jedi Council overnight. However, he did slowly start to teach the new Jedi, up-and-coming Jedi, what his real beliefs were and the actual real way that you should be a Jedi. So look at Jedi's pupils and you'll see this, okay? The pupils show that this is true. Mace Windu trained initially by another, but Yoda was a huge advocate of Mace Windu. He was a huge mentor in Mace Windu's life, and Yoda aided Windu in helping him to not shut out the dark side. Windu actually allowed the dark side in. He actually channeled the dark side when he created his new lightsaber form, Vaapad, and he mastered the dark side. Instead of allowing the dark side to overcome him or shy away from it and not let it in, Yoda helped with Mace Windu to actually allow the dark side in. And this is something that we see with other people. Now, Ki-Adi-Mundi, who we mentioned, he was also trained by Yoda. And Ki-Adi-Mundi, like we said, very different approach, very different view, and he's very stubborn with that view. Ki-Adi-Mundi's people were very intelligent, and I think that the knowledge that Ki-Adi-Mundi's people wanted, he used the Jedi texts more than he used the influence of Yoda. He didn't let his master Jedi Yoda, or his Jedi master Yoda, allow him to believe, whatever was being taught to him. He read Jedi texts, he read old texts, he was thirsting for knowledge. That's what his people do. Now, if you look at the other peoples, Ki-Adi-Mundi was the only one out in left field. Look at Dooku. Dooku left the Jedi Order after he could see the wrongs in the Jedi through teaching from Yoda. Dooku trained Qui-Gon Jinn, and that was with Yoda's teachings. Qui-Gon Jinn followed the will of the Force, just as Yoda had taught Count Dooku to do. Yoda taught Dooku these things, then it was taught to Qui-Gon Jinn. So Qui-Gon Jinn followed the will of the Force. He believed in connection with others and even loving another Jedi, which Dooku didn't frown upon. Dooku allowed this because this is the teachings that Yoda tried to implement into his pupils. Obviously, again, Ki-Adi-Mundi being the one out in left field. Then if you look at it, Qui-Gon Jinn similarly trained Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Obi-Wan Kenobi had his relationship with Duchess Satine, and Qui-Gon Jinn was fine with it. Because that's how they believed. This was the new way of the Jedi, slowly coming in. Yoda, over his long span of time being the Jedi Master, or the Grand Master of the Jedi, Yoda was slowly starting to turn the Jedi to understand they can't just have this tunnel vision approach to the Force. They have to understand there are light and dark within everybody, and you have to be able to have emotional connection and be able to conquer the dark side. Not shy away from it, not let it in. I thoroughly believe this is what Yoda was trying to do. This is why I believe that Yoda was ultimately willing to let Obi-Wan train Anakin. Yoda, I believe, wanted to train Anakin himself, but the Council would never have allowed him to do so with his other responsibilities and not wanting to show a sense of selfish pride in training a supposed chosen one. So you can see that Yoda's series of Jedi were slowly shifting to this new understanding of the Force and greater than the black and white views of the past that Yoda was initially trained in. I believe that Yoda was the perfect Jedi Master. Similar to Luke Skywalker in many ways, Yoda's challenge was that he was having to balance the politics of the transitioning Jedi. This is something that slowed down this process, and he wasn't able to complete it quick enough before Lord Sidious came in and wreaked havoc on everything. You can see Yoda's pain as the Jedi fell, and he cared deeply for his Jedi family. Though he was able to overcome the emotions the dark side would foster in him, he knew that this was okay, all right? It's not that Yoda didn't feel pain or anger or hate, but rather he understood these emotions. He felt them, but didn't allow the emotions to dictate his being. Emotions would not dictate his actions, thoughts, or desires. In this way, we can see Yoda see the Force as not just an entity, but a way of moral compass. The light side would be as to live a moral life with passion, invested in doing the right thing at all times. We see this in humans on a daily basis. We don't allow, do you allow anger to make you hurt someone? Does fear hold you back from natural growth? Or does your heart fester with the thoughts of those you hate? If you have overcome this, if fear does not keep you from achieving your goals, if anger doesn't control your actions, or if hate doesn't make your heart heavy with dark thoughts, maybe you too have found balance in the Force. This is what Yoda, I believe, did. And this is what Yoda, I believe, wanted his Jedi to eventually start to understand. This is also why I believe Yoda trained all of the younglings, because he wanted to foster this in this new age of Jedi that was coming. Circling back to Anakin now, I believe Yoda viewed himself as a father figure to the young boy in many ways that fathers themselves find themselves in the real world with children that just turned 18 or are over 18. Yoda would counsel with Anakin when he struggled. He understood what the young man was going through, but loved him enough to allow him to feel his own emotions and make his own choices. Yoda's love for his Jedi allowed him to not control them. He wanted them to find themselves, and he let them make their own decisions, whether it was right or wrong. This is many ways that many people look at God and Jesus Christ, is that they love us enough to not have us be perfect. We are imperfect, and they still love us and let us make our own decisions and make the wrong decisions if we choose to. They allow us to make those wrong decisions and not control us and make us do what they want us to do. That is the way that people look at those religions, same way that Yoda is approaching this. Just like letting your child go to a party, or venturing off to college far away, or choose who they want to befriend and court as a potential spouse. Yoda knew Anakin was brushing with the dark side. He knew the conflict within Anakin. However, opposite of the ways of the old Jedi, Yoda allowed Anakin to be tested. He didn't hide Anakin from this. He didn't shelter the boy away from what potentially could be the dark side, and he didn't try to control him. This act of love allowed the one thing all good parents dread: their child possibly making a wrong choice. Which Anakin did. Just like a child getting into drugs or becoming an alcoholic or bearing a child from someone without any commitment to them, Anakin made his own choices and made the wrong ones. Anakin hid his relationship instead of telling Yoda. This weighed on him in ways that he couldn't handle on his own. Ultimately, I firmly believe that if he were open with Yoda, and if he would tell Yoda, hey, I have this relationship with Padme, I love her, all this stuff, Yoda, I believe, would have accepted him. Yoda would have done so for all of his Jedi. He had done so in the past. Yoda is very wise and very smart, and he sees so many things. I know he was aware of Obi-Wan and Justice Satine. He was aware of Qui-Gon Jinn's relationship. He was aware of Anakin with Padme. He was aware of these things, but he didn't control them. He didn't stop them. He didn't fear what could have been the dark side within them, within this Jedi. He loved them enough to allow them to make their own decisions and make their own choices and brave this experience that they were going through. So, Anakin hid his relationship, and Yoda would have counseled Anakin. If Anakin had opened up to Yoda, Yoda would have counseled Anakin in ways that would have fostered an open marriage and gave Anakin peace within the coming children that he had. Not fear. He wouldn't have been afraid of hiding all these things. All this stuff maybe would have kept him from having those visions of Padme dying. And maybe Yoda could have consoled him better in how to be at peace with with the vision of Padme dying. I think that this is what would have come from that. So when Yoda says that he failed and had to go into exile, I believe that he meant he failed in his own eyes because Anakin hid his love for Padme. Anakin didn't trust in Yoda enough to divulge this. And ultimately, as parents, this is what we want. This is what you want as parents, is to make sure that your children trust you enough, they see you enough as a friend as well as a parent, that they open up to you, that they talk to you, they communicate to you, they counsel with you at times of struggle, so you can help them understand what they're facing. Not make their decisions for them, but counsel them with your experience and help them understand what they're going through emotionally. This is what all parents want. All good parents want. There are plenty of parents who are controlling and want to keep their kids locked up and keep them away from the dangers of society, but as a good parent, this is not what you're going to do. You're going to want to allow them to make their own decisions, and possibly bad decisions. I have amazing parents that did so. We have 3 different kids, and we all have 3 different lifestyles and how our lifestyles turned out. And those very different lifestyles that we have are dictated because we chose them ourselves. And my parents loved us enough to allow us to do so. Now, this is something I believe all good parents will do. And as we all know, children will make their own choices. They're going to. If you try to control them, manipulate them, they're going to revolt against you. They're going to go and sneak drugs into your house. They're going to sneak alcohol into your house. They're going to do things that you don't want them to do because you're not allowing them to make their own decisions to do it. If you allow them to, if you're open to them, if you're a friend to them, if you let them know you got a friend in me, just like Toy Story, if they're willing to confide in you, you can now help them understand life. You can help them to not go and overdose or get arrested at a drunken party or whatever. You can help them to understand those things. So maybe if they really feel they have to test those waters with things, they'll do so in a safe environment, which will keep them okay. Children will make their own decision. Just because they make the wrong decision, it doesn't mean that you failed. And it doesn't mean that Yoda failed. Ultimately, as long as your children trust you and confide in you so that you can counsel them with their open problems, you have done what you should as a parent. And this is what I believe that Yoda was looking to do. Yoda, like many parents in this situation, can feel that they have failed. They feel that they have failed, and Yoda feels that he has failed. Anakin. But we don't believe that he failed. Here on the channel, Aurora and I firmly believe that Yoda did not fail Anakin for being a greater father than Anakin could have wished. Anakin failed Yoda. That's what happened. Anakin failed Yoda as a son by not trusting the wise and caring master in ways that he trusted and confided in Obi-Wan. Anakin would confide in Obi-Wan. He would open up about these things and talk to Obi-Wan about some of this stuff. He would not open up to Yoda about this. And if he did, I believe Yoda would have been the amazing, caring father that we believe that he is on the channel. And he would have allowed Anakin to understand better what he was going through, and Anakin would never have turned to the dark side. But just like any parent has to go through with their children, if your kid doesn't trust you, just like Anakin didn't trust Yoda enough to confide in him and open up about these things, Yoda can only do so much. I do believe Yoda would have opened up to Anakin. I do believe Yoda would have allowed Anakin to have his still relationship, to have an open marriage, all of this stuff, and allow Anakin to be someone who showcased to the other Jedis that this is okay. Because Yoda was slowly trying to progress that. Yoda was slowly trying to get the Jedi to that point, and he couldn't. And this is ultimately why Yoda knew Order 66 was coming and knew that the Jedi had to die. And it sucked. It sucked for him. He didn't want that to happen, but ultimately he knew it had to for the new Jedi way that he was trying to accomplish to come quick enough for the Jedi to ultimately survive and find their way to the true meaning of the light side of the Force. And that's what happened. Ultimately, the Jedi Purge happened. All the Jedi died. And yes, Yoda saw many of his Jedi die. He didn't know the severity of what would happen from the Jedi Purge, but ultimately, he had to let it happen. Ultimately, Lord Sidious pushed the agenda too fast. And Yoda did not have time to get his Jedi to understand the full knowledge of the light side. He wasn't able to teach Anakin in the ways that he wanted to. He wasn't able to openly allow Anakin to have that marriage with Padme and stuff like that, and not allow Sidious to get the upper hand. We're going to do another video on that, talking about Yoda and the struggles that he had, and how Yoda ultimately knew about Order 66, why he allowed Order 66 and all the Jedi to die, because he knew it had to happen for the light side of the Force, for the Jedi to live on. and ultimately, as a father, he allowed the sacrifice to happen. Really sad situations in many ways, but what do you guys think? That's the end of this video. We're gonna wrap it up for today. Do you think that Yoda did fail Anakin? Or was it that Anakin failed Yoda? Because I firmly believe that Yoda was wise beyond his years and knew really, truly the way of the Jedi, the way of the light side of the Force, and how to follow the Force correctly. And I don't believe that he would have shunned away Anakin and would have looked down on him and not allowed Anakin to be his own person. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments down below. We thought this was an interesting take on Star Wars. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And we are official travel agents. Again, we are free service, so if you want to go down to Orlando or California, it would help the channel out tremendously. So reach out to us. We'll talk to you guys again on the next video.